It's always fun to see the young brigade of Malayalam cinema experiment with genres and try out new things within the scope of the industry, within the kind of stardom they have, within the kind of budgets they are given. And the latest genre to join this list, the superhero film. Of course, we saw Minnal Murli recently, Basil and Tovino coming out, all guns blazing to give us a very rooted superhero. And in very, very close proximity is this week's release. Vanakkam and welcome to Cinema Express. This is Avinash Ramachandran, and in this video review episode, we are going to look at Dominic Arun's Lokah Chapter 1, starring Kalyani Priyadarshan, Naslen, Sandy, and a bunch of other actors. As always, this review will contain spoilers, so please do watch it in your own discretion. There's a lot of films that try to toy with the genre, but again, a lot of these films have their inspiration somewhere else, as in they look towards the west, something bites, something changes, something radioactivity, a lot of things happen, but it's very interesting how a country that's rich in folklore. Of course, we might not have the comics that continue to fuel the literature, continue to fuel the content, continue to fuel the imagination of a lot of generations of people all across the globe. But we have a strong mythological narrative that is always around us. We always grew up hearing stories. We always grew up hearing myths, fables, folklore, stories of kings and stories of ghosts, things that we might not really know what's happening, but it's still a fascinating story to tell. And one such story is the center of this film, and it's wonderful how they've played with a story that is so relevant, so prevalent in Malayalam cinema, and it's fascinating how the narrative uses this to give us probably one of our most premier superhero films in Indian cinema. Kalyani plays this assassin kind of a thing who actually reminded me of the old guard with the kind of timelessness that we see through an animated sequence in the initial credit stage, where we are shown how this character played by Kalyani Priyadarshan has evolved through the ages, literally. And then we finally see her being given a mission to go to Bengaluru and find out some particular thing, and that particular thing, we'll get to that later. But what happens is, this person Chandra has a few boxes to tick. That is, she will not work in the morning, she prefers the night, she prefers the gothic makeup, she prefers wearing all black, she likes the moon, she loves dogs. In fact, it's quite fascinating that, considering the controversy and the conversations around dogs, it's nice to see them get a decent representation in our mainstream cinema. And we have Kalyani Priyadarshan playing Chandra, and she is a revelation. She is wonderful in this film as this quiet assassin who literally holds the weight of secrets that people have no idea about. She has traveled through the ages, but why has she traveled through it? That's where a wonderful flashback happens. I think it's probably one of the best conceptualized and wonderfully executed sequences in recent Indian cinema. It has a nice, strong emotional core that makes this superhero someone that we would love to root for. And this is a hero who is not just trying to save the world per se, as in doesn't have one big villain. It's a Chandra has multiple villains throughout the ages, and of course one of them is misogyny, one of them is patriarchy, and she is trying to do. And it's actually funny to see how, despite her presence through the many centuries and years together, patriarchy and misogyny continue to roost in our society. She is there to fight for the helpless. She is there to fight for the voiceless. We see the idea of a neon lit city. We see how wonderful a film can be made with just the vision being right and the execution being backed by a producer who knows what they are doing. The cinematography is brilliant. The production design is wonderful. You know that you're watching a film that it might not be real. As in, I don't think Bangalore looks like that. I don't think people can jump here and there. I don't think people can climb acid towers and stuff like that. But it's okay. Superhero film doesn't warrant a outsider's logic. It warrants a logic within the space of the world, and that is wonderfully explained. The film takes its time to settle what's really happening, because Lokah is not just an individual film. It's not a standalone film. It's a precursor to what's happening. And of course, Kalyani Priyadarshan's role is brilliant and she has done a good job. But after a point, the film also suffers from the idea that it has to establish what's coming up. But it takes enough time and gives enough respect to Chandra, and it's not like she serves as a placeholder. She is important, her character is important, what she's doing is important, what she's telling is important, why she's doing it is important, and in between all this, there's also a wonderful love story that again spans through the ages. It talks about a love that is sacrificial, it talks about a love that is not just love at first sight kind of a thing, but it is nice to see how that is evolving. It's nice to see how Chandra finds her adversary in Bengaluru. It's nice to see how the other pieces of the larger puzzle of Lokah come into play. They all come into play. We all know, if you have been lucky enough to not see the spoilers, good for you. A lot of other characters are involved. The entire film is based on the Kerala folklore, the mythical creatures that we've all grown up hearing stories about, and there are a lot of names being dropped that are very much part of the Kerala ethos, and still it's so fresh, it's so new, it's so refreshing. It's almost like someone has redefined the fairy tale for this new generation of audience, and that is not something that happens very frequently or easily. It's not easy to completely change what you perceive to be folklore. It's not very easy to change what you perceive to be a myth. As they say, of course, every myth, every folklore has truth hidden behind it, but it's been so many years since we've been fed a lot of stories. How do you decide to wake up one fine day and tell that this is how the story will be known from today? How do you have that conviction? How do you have that belief that people will believe you, believe your story, believe your version of it? And that conviction is what is the core strength of Lokah. Because if not for that conviction, if not for that strength, if not for that belief that the audience would accept a reiteration of a myth and still love what they're seeing, if that conviction wasn't there, Lokah would have crumbled. But since that is there in abundance, we throw our weights behind Lokah, and it's a film that deserves a lot of love, mainly because not just for the vision, not just for the ideas the film is saying, and not just for having such a strong emotional core, strong social messaging. It's also because this is a film that is not telling you to believe it because it tried too hard. It's not a film that's asking you to back it because they're trying something new. No, they have tried hard. They have given us something new, but they have given it in a film that is wonderful on its own. Even if you don't really want to think of the future of Malayalam cinema, or if you don't want to think of what a pan-Indian success would do to a film like Lokah and an industry like Malayalam cinema, if you don't want to think of all of these things, the film is still a wonderful standalone experience. And the way the film is shot, as I said, it's a wonderful visual treat. The acting is on point. There are a few misses that happen because of the fact that this film actually is, of course, not a placeholder per se, but it is also a film that has to be stretched beyond a point for establishing the ground rules, establishing the world that we are going to see very, very soon. So there are a few hits and misses there. The portions involving Naslen and his friends, they are funny, they are witty, they put a smile on our faces, but they also extend their stay. It didn't need to go so far, is what I felt, because that takes away from very, very crucial moments that we could have spent more with Chandra, spent more with what makes her go through all of these things over and over and over again. See, again, it's not important that we understand the psyche of a superhero, but I think by now, because of the so many films that we've seen across the world where we want to understand why a superhero does what they do, I think we could have done a bit more with spending more time with Chandra and to understand the burden of being a superhero, because we can see that she is a very, very quiet person. She not just by choice, because just think she doesn't want to do a lot of things because she's burdened by it. She doesn't want to do a lot of things because how many times would you do the same thing again and again and again and again and again and again and again before it starts getting to you? And talking about that would have been a much more fascinating thing than probably spending a lot of time with Naslen and friends. And also coming back to the villain is terrific. He's played by Sandy. And again, this villain is not something that is, let's say, a super villain per se. It starts off as a garden variety villain, and this garden variety villain also has a strong emotional core, has a wonderful reasoning for what he's doing. Of course, it's not a right reason per se, but in his head it is right. Even before he is actually pitted against Chandra, we are given enough scenes to show that this might be one of the more interesting hero villain arcs that we have seen in recent Indian cinema. And I think a lot of things work in Lokah. A lot of things work in favor of Lokah. Like, of course, even the cameos work in favor of Lokah. Although I felt a couple of cameos could have been reduced in length or probably come in a little bit later. Or there are a lot of things that I think are not really working for the film with respect to the duration of the cameos. But it's fascinating to see the kind of players that will be inhabiting the world. It's nice to see the kind of chapters that's going to follow. This is a sensational idea. This is a phenomenal execution. And what we are going to see with the world of Lokah is something that might change Indian cinema, but it's going to definitely change Malayalam cinema, mainly because it's again showing to the world and mainly showing to Indian cinema that Malayalam cinema doesn't just do content-driven films, and in many ways, superhero film can also be a content-driven film without it being a theme park-ish film or a tent pole film. This is an important addition to the idea of Malayalam cinema. It's not just what the world thinks Malayalam cinema is all about. This is also Malayalam cinema, and it's a pointer that it's a template that could be replicated, should be replicated, and Indian cinema would do great if this is replicated with the idea that the filmmaker has the final say and we can make stars out of our actors instead of choosing stars to be the actors in these films. Because walking out of Lokah and being completely in awe with the performances of Kalyani, Naslen, Sandy, Chandu, Vijay Raghavan, and a lot of other cameo actors, what I really felt was this is testament to what any industry could do with the right kind of backing, with the right kind of intent and the right kind of conviction. Lokah isn't saying that this is the right thing to do. Lokah says that even with flaws, even with its contrivances, even with its constraints, a film will talk to the audience, will reach the right audience if it is mounted well, if it is acted well, if it has the right ingredients. And what a pan-Indian success truly is that the film should travel to places instead of the actors saying that it will. On that note, thank you for joining this video review episode. If you liked it, please like, share and subscribe to Cinema Express, and do let us know what you thought of the film and this review. Until we meet in the next episode, this is your friendly neighborhood critic, Avinash Ramachandran, signing off. Tata.